we are at the beginning of the electoral process in the United States, but probably from the Republican area already have what will be the candidate at the presidency, the natural candidate at the presidency, and is Donald J. Trump, without any doubt. I believe that Mr. Trump will be the natural and is the natural candidate also because the majority of Republican voters support Mr. Trump. The objective of this video is to express my point of view about who will be the running mate with Trump for the vice presidency, who I consider, in my analysis, the best running mate for Mr. Trump. But before going on with the presentation, remember that there is my book on inflation in sale. You will find the description of this video, the link in order to purchase it. In that book you will find everything you need to know about inflation. Remember also to subscribe to the channel and to share it with your friends, and to share the video also with your friends. So, before talking about the Republican process and who will be the candidate as VP, I would like to make a little comparison between the US election and the European election that in both cases will be held this year. In case of Europe, there will be in June the election at the European Parliament, and why I consider comparing the Europe and the United States. They have similar citizens, similar political, we can say, orientation. They are allied, but I consider the United States a better democracy, and I will explain why, in my opinion, is a better democracy. Well, you have in US, there could be many critics around the world, but you have, in my opinion, a clear electoral system that finally, accordingly to the delegate that are elected, you have a clear president and you have who is going to run the government for the next 4 years. Also, at the same time, you have some problems with what we call the deep state, but you have the same situation in Europe, but exponentially more serious. I will explain why. In Europe, you have an election, but at the end of the election, you will have an impure, if you allow me this term, majority that will run the European Parliament. Why? Because there wouldn't be any party with enough votes in order to govern. There will be a coalition that will have the main goal just to stay in power and not the goodness of the citizen. So if you compare the American system and the European one of election, in the case of the US system, you have a clear way to have a president and somebody that will run the country for 4 years. In Europe, you will have a majority that is an unnatural majority, when you will have probably left wing, right wing, all together, people with different ideas. So the result of having people with different and opposite ideas is very easy. Nobody decides, and who really runs the government in Europe is what it is known as a European deep state, which if you have also in the US the deep state, but in Europe, in my opinion, is 10 times bigger. Because nobody has enough vote to run, to take decision, and to work for the citizens. As simple as that. Who Trump should choose, in my opinion? Well, first I will start to who I wouldn't choose if I were Mr. Trump. There are two pre-candidates. I'm talking about Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. In both cases, there are people that I've thought that maybe they could become VP for Trump, running together as a running mate together with Trump. In my opinion, in both cases, it would be a bad choice. Why? Well, because they have they have shown no appreciation for Mr. Trump. They have been extremely critical. So if Trump would choose one of them, we'll have somebody in his team that it is not really supporting him. It will be in his team, in case he will choose one of them, just to take advantage of being there, but without being there because he or she really wants to be there. It's important to mention that at this point of the race, Ron DeSantis already dropped for the competition, fully endorsing Mr. Trump.
We can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign.
Nikki Haley is still on the race, and she's still making some observation that, in my opinion, about the ex-president, about Mr. Trump, are not very polite. At the same time, I have noticed that in the Republican Party there are very important representatives of it that are starting to openly endorse Mr. Trump. One of them, for example, is Senator Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, I saw an interview where he fully endorsed Donald Trump. So, in my opinion, the Republican Party is gathering around Mr. Trump. And it's particularly important because the party is recognizing that Trump will be his candidate. But at the same time, we have to remember that when the party is gathering around someone, they are starting to push for the second most important position. What is the vice presidency? So let's analyze what, in my opinion, could be the best candidate as VP for Mr. Trump. And among these, we have three people that could be eventually the next VP of Mr. Trump in case Mr. Trump will be elected. I'm referring to Tim Scott, the senator, or Tulsi Gabbard, or Vivek Ramaswamy. And all these three could be eventually a possibility or a possible VP to run together with Mr. Trump. And they can give some leverage, and they could help Trump in achieving his goal, that is, be re-elected as a president. But between the three, and they are three nice people, and they have potentiality, all three, but in my opinion, only one of them, it will be the best running mate to run together with Trump. And I'm referring to Vivek Ramaswamy. I will explain why I consider Vivek Ramaswamy the natural VP candidate for Mr. Trump, for several reasons. The first one, Vivek Ramaswamy shares the same or a very similar philosophy about the government that Mr. Trump has. So together, because of that, they could make a really strong team. They could be together very strong. Second, I think that to have Vivek Ramaswamy as candidate, you have somebody that think like you, that appreciate you, and that watch your back. It's very important. In big corporation, if you are named general manager or CEO, you have somebody that thinks like you, means that it will help you in the process, and you need somebody that take care of the different attack that can arrive from. So Vivek Ramaswamy will perform that job perfectly. And finally, and probably the most important reason why Vivek Ramaswamy is Trump's natural candidate is the fact that Donald Trump will be able to be president only for 4 years. And thanks of having Vivek Ramaswamy, he will be able to let a legacy for another 8 years in the government. Because Vivek is somebody that thinks as Mr. Trump in a very similar way. So thanks of having Vivek, the future, and it will be, let's say, a way to run the US, not only for 4 years, but for another 8 years, because you have somebody that thinks like you. Finally, I have also a little recommendation for Joe. Yeah, you understand well. Joe Biden, the president, Mr. President. Mr. Joe Biden will try to be re-elected and will compete probably against Mr. Trump. But the little advice that I have for Mr. Biden is referring to, I don't know if he will be able to choose what will be his vice president. But if in the case Trump will choose Vivek, I find very funny to see the debate, the public debate between Vivek and Kamala Harris. I think it will be very entertaining, in my opinion, for everybody around the world. So I have a small recommendation, a humble recommendation. In order, to be a little bit stronger on that point of view, maybe if he has the possibility only to have another VP to run for the re-election with him, I would choose another one. Anyway, if he let Kamala, it will be perfectly fine for me, because it will be very interesting to see the debate between the two vice presidents candidates. So, thank you, and I hope it interested you, and I'm looking forward to see you in my next week video. Thank you.